Well, it finally happened. The royal bombshell no one thought Charles had the nerve to drop, and oh, he dropped it hard. After years of family feuds, Netflix confessions, and Montecito pity parties, King Charles has officially done the unthinkable. Harry and Meghan are no longer the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. That's right, titles terminated, royal privileges revoked, and Buckingham Palace just hit the digital delete button like they were removing spam. But wait, was this really about protocol or payback? Because sources inside the palace are whispering that this wasn't a paperwork update. It was a power move. The crown finally clapped back. No HRH, no Duke, no Duchess, just Harry and Meghan, ordinary, civilian, done, and you can practically hear the teacups shattering in Montecito. Because behind those designer curtains and Netflix deals, the Sussexes built their empire on royal branding, and now that foundation just crumbled. But here's the real question. Why now? Why did King Charles suddenly draw the royal sword after years of silent suffering? Was this about duty or revenge? Grab your crown, pour your tea, because this isn't just royal drama, this is royal war. So let's start from the top, because this royal circus didn't start overnight. It's been brewing for years, right under the glittering chandeliers of Buckingham Palace. The fairy tale that turned into a feud, the golden couple that became royal outcasts, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, former Duke and Duchess, who once promised to modernize the monarchy and ended up commercializing it instead. Remember 2020? Mexit, the royal breakup that made Brexit look polite. Harry and Meghan packed their bags, grabbed their Netflix deal, and crossed the Atlantic faster than you could say Your Majesty. They wanted independence, they said. Privacy, they said. And yet, within months, there they were, podcasting, producing, and telling Oprah everything short of the Queen's breakfast order. At first, Charles played the patient father. He smiled for the cameras, issued polite statements, and hoped the drama would fade. But behind palace walls? Different story. The courtiers whispered that His Majesty's tolerance was wearing thinner than the crown's patience. One aide even joked, off the record, every time Meghan goes live, a royal PR crisis is born. The tension reached a boiling point when Meghan allegedly filed new business documents in California using her Duchess of Sussex title. A small detail, but in royal circles, that's treason with a trademark. Word got back to London, and let's just say, the king wasn't amused. The late queen had made Meghan promise never to use her royal status for personal profit. And yet, here she was, monetizing her duchessdom like it was a luxury skincare line. Inside the palace, the gloves came off. Senior advisors urged Charles to act. But the person pushing hardest? Prince William. You see, the future king had grown tired of his brother's California theatrics. Sources say he told Charles point blank, "You can't be king and let the crown be mocked from across the ocean," and for once, Charles listened. But before we get there, let's rewind, because this wasn't just about Meghan's business ventures or Harry's interviews. This was about reputation. For 3 years, the Sussexes had danced between royalty and celebrity, one foot in the palace, the other on the red carpet. The public was confused, the monarchy embarrassed. Every time Harry opened his mouth, another royal tradition caught fire. From his memoir Spare to their Netflix tell-all, the Sussex saga turned Buckingham Palace into a global meme. And the British press? They were having a field day. Palace power struggle, one tabloid screamed. Harry and Meghan's Hollywood hustle, said another. Public trust in the royal family dipped. Polls showed that for the first time, people sympathized more with William and Kate than with the so-called royal rebels. And that was the final straw. Sources close to the king claim he'd been considering the move for months, but what really pushed him was a quiet conversation with Parliament. Yes, even Westminster was starting to grumble. Behind closed doors, lawmakers had begun drafting what they called the Royal Titles Reform Bill, a proposal to strip inactive royals of their privileges. Translation: if the king didn't act soon, politicians would. Charles couldn't risk that humiliation. Imagine the headlines: government forces king to discipline his own son. not exactly the legacy you want as the head of a 1,000-year institution. So he made the call quietly, strategically, no press release, no warning. Just one digital edit on the royal website. Poof! The Duke and Duchess of Sussex were no more. It was the modern equivalent of a royal execution. Instead of swords and gallows, there was a mouse click and an update. Buckingham Palace didn't need a public spectacle. The silence spoke louder. The removal happened late at night, London time, while the world was asleep. By morning, royal watchers noticed the change. HRH Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, gone. HRH the Duchess of Sussex, gone. In the span of a few pixels, history was rewritten. And make no mistake, this wasn't just paperwork. This was a message, a warning. The monarchy had drawn its line in the digital sand. No more titles. No more royal privileges. No more riding the wave of Windsor while cashing checks in California. But the real drama? That started when Meghan found out. Because while the palace moved in silence, Montecito did not. The Sussexes woke up to the royal deletion like everyone else, through headlines and social media. Imagine logging into your phone and seeing your entire royal identity erased. Reportedly, Meghan's first reaction was disbelief. She thought it was a mistake, a glitch. But when her team checked the official site, the truth was staring right back at them. They'd been digitally divorced from the crown. Friends say she was furious. This is personal, she allegedly snapped during a conference call. They're trying to erase me within hours. PR advisors were scrambling, lawyers were making calls, and insiders claim Meghan even considered a public statement until she realized something horrifying. No one was defending her. Hollywood, once her loudest ally, had gone silent. Sponsors hesitated. Brand partners paused. The Duchess identity, the thing that gave her projects their sparkle, had evaporated. And without that title, the empire she built suddenly looked fragile. And across the ocean, back in London, King Charles sat in silence. His aides described him as somber, not triumphant. Because this wasn't an easy choice, it was a necessary one. As one insider put it, he didn't do it out of anger. He did it to survive. But survival comes with casualties. And as Charles signed the final approval, he couldn't have known that this decision, this cold, calculated royal reset, was about to set off a chain reaction that would shake both sides of the Atlantic. Because if stripping the titles was Act 1, what came next was the royal aftershock no one saw coming. The next morning, the royal earthquake had reached California, and Montecito was trembling. Paparazzi camped outside the Sussex mansion like it was the red carpet of a royal disaster movie. Reporters shouted questions, drones buzzed overhead, and headlines exploded. King Charles erases Harry and Meghan from royal history. The couple who had spent years controlling their own narrative suddenly had no control at all. According to insiders, Harry was the first to crack. He had tried to stay calm, meditation, journaling, all that California zen. But when the news alerts hit his phone, the facade crumbled. One friend claimed he paced the kitchen muttering, "He actually did it. He really did it for Harry." The titles weren't just status, they were the last thread connecting him to his family. Without them, he wasn't the Duke of Sussex. He was just Harry Windsor, the runaway prince with a Netflix contract. Meanwhile, Meghan was reportedly livid. Not sad, not shocked, furious. Sources claim she stormed into her office and demanded an emergency Zoom with her PR and legal teams. "They've gone too far," she allegedly said. "If they want war, they'll get one." Within hours, crisis managers were drafting statements, lawyers were reviewing precedents, and publicists were weighing how to spin it. But the problem was, the palace wasn't talking. There was no statement to counter, no leak to expose. Just a silent, surgical decision that left them powerless. The strategy, according to royal insiders, was intentional. Charles had learned from the Queen, never complain, never explain. He wanted dignity, not drama. And while the Sussex camp panicked, Buckingham Palace carried on as if nothing happened. No press briefings, no clarifications. Even William and Kate maintained their trademark composure, attending a charity event that same evening, smiling, calm, unbothered, while the internet melted down. But behind that calm, there was chaos. Because even though Charles had made the decision privately, the ripple effects were massive. Royal historians called it the most significant disciplinary act against a royal since Edward VIII. Political analysts praised Charles for showing strength and stability, while others called it cold, calculated revenge. The public was divided. Some saw it as justice, others pure cruelty. And the reaction from Hollywood? Awkward silence. You'd think Meghan's celebrity circle, Oprah, Ellen, Serena, Tyler Perry, would rally in defense. But they didn't. Even the big outlets that once worshipped the Sussexes, Vogue, Variety, Vanity Fair, toned down their coverage. Suddenly, the industry that had embraced Meghan as a royal revolutionary started treating her like a PR liability. It didn't help that new reports emerged from London, claiming Charles had informed the Archbishop of Canterbury before taking action. Translation: it wasn't impulsive, it was official, lawful, and backed by the church. That made any legal retaliation nearly impossible. The monarchy had spoken, and this time, it was bulletproof. But what really hit Harry the hardest wasn't the loss of his title, it was who didn't call. For the first time in years, his father didn't reach out privately. Not a word, not even a text. That silence cut deeper than the announcement. Insiders say Harry kept checking his phone, waiting for the message that never came. He thought it would be handled quietly, maybe reversed later, said one close friend. But when it went public, he knew his father was done. And let's talk about that father-son dynamic, because that's where the real tragedy sits. Charles and Harry's relationship has always been complicated, love buried under protocol, grief wrapped in public duty. For years, Charles had tried to balance compassion with control. But when Harry released Spare, accusing his brother of assaulting him and his father of emotional neglect, it crossed an invisible line. This wasn't family drama anymore. It was royal warfare. And Charles, despite his soft-spoken image, has always played the long game. Meanwhile, Meghan reportedly tried to regain control by leaning into her media power. She planned a reflective interview, something emotional, but empowering. Not an attack, just her truth, but her PR team advised against it. If you speak now, one publicist warned, you look reactive. If you wait, you look strategic. For once, Meghan listened. The silence from Montecito stretched into days, and the internet filled the gap with chaos. TikTokers made theories. Tabloids wrote eulogies for the Sussex brand, and royal YouTubers called it the final chapter. Hashtags like #RoyalRevenge and #NoMoreDuke and Duchess trended for days. The Sussexes had lost the titles, but the internet made sure the drama stayed alive. Then came the second shockwave. Prince William broke his silence. During a charity dinner in London, a reporter shouted, "Sir, what do you think about your brother losing his titles?" William paused, smiled tightly, and said just one sentence, "Some choices have consequences." That single line exploded across every news outlet in the world. It wasn't cruel, it was surgical. The heir to the throne had said what Charles couldn't. This wasn't punishment. It was accountability. Royal insiders claimed that moment was orchestrated. Charles needed a public face for this decision. And who better than the future king? William's calm remark reassured the public that the monarchy wasn't being vindictive, it was protecting itself. Back in California, Harry was crushed. Insiders say he replayed that clip over and over, unable to believe how final it sounded. Meghan tried to console him, but their reactions were worlds apart. He wanted reconciliation. She wanted retribution. Friends described the atmosphere as icy for the first time. Cracks appeared between the couple themselves, and just as things couldn't get worse, British outlets began publishing leaks about what comes next. One headline hinted that the king was preparing to remove Harry and Meghan's children from the line of succession, a move that would effectively end their royal lineage. It was the nuclear option, and the palace wasn't denying it. The message was clear. The royal titles were just the beginning. By week's end, the Sussex brand was shaken. Netflix executives reportedly held emergency meetings to reassess the Sussex deal. Their upcoming projects were delayed. Sponsors grew hesitant, and even Spotify executives whispered that the royal sparkle is gone for Harry and Meghan. The loss wasn't just symbolic, it was financial. The brand built on royal identity had just lost its crown jewel. And as the backlash mounted, one insider summed it up perfectly: they wanted to leave the palace, but the palace just left them. And yet, behind the palace gates, King Charles wasn't celebrating. He was brooding, because the storm he started was far from over. In stripping the Sussexes, he hadn't just reasserted royal authority, he'd unleashed a global reckoning, a reckoning that was about to reach Parliament, the media, and even his own family. As the dust settled over Buckingham Palace, Britain found itself divided like never before. The royal family had survived scandals, divorces, and even Netflix documentaries. But this was something different. The monarchy hadn't just disciplined a rebellious prince. It had effectively erased him. And that decision sent ripples far beyond the royal gates, into politics, religion, and global perception. Within 48 hours, Parliament was abuzz. Lawmakers from opposing parties debated whether the king had gone too far. Some argued it was the right move, a necessary act to protect the dignity of the crown. Others called it a personal vendetta disguised as constitutional order. One MP even demanded an inquiry into how royal decisions intersect with government oversight. Suddenly, what began as a family feud had turned into a political thunderstorm across the Atlantic. The American press feasted on the drama. Late-night hosts cracked jokes about Charles unfriending Harry, while Hollywood tabloids spun theories about Meghan's next big tell-all. Is Meghan planning Spare 2.0? One headline screamed. Another speculated. Netflix presses record as royal chaos unfolds, but behind the laughter, industry insiders whispered that Meghan's star power was dimming. Without her royal status, her interviews lost their sparkle. The former Duchess label didn't carry the same magic. Then came the leaks. The kind of anonymous sources only royal insiders could feed. A mysterious document allegedly circulated among senior courtiers, labeled Project Sovereign Cleanse. It outlined a long-term plan to restructure the monarchy, focusing only on working royals: Charles, Camilla, William, Kate, and their children. Harry and Meghan? Not even a footnote. According to one supposed insider, the goal was clear: slim down the monarchy, cut the drama, preserve the crown. And if that document was real, it meant this wasn't spontaneous revenge. It was premeditated, planned months, maybe years, in advance. Meanwhile, Meghan and Harry were fighting to regain control of their story. Insiders claim they began filming a private documentary, not for Netflix, but for themselves. They want the truth on record. One source said, if the palace ever tries to rewrite history, they'll have footage ready. But even that effort came with problems. Crew members quit halfway through, saying the energy was too heavy. Sponsors pulled out quietly, and Meghan's planned podcast reboot was shelved indefinitely online. The backlash grew nastier by the hour. Hashtags like #CharlesTheCold and #DownWithTheDuchess trended simultaneously, showing just how split the public had become. Some sympathized with the Sussexes, calling them victims of an outdated system. Others mocked them relentlessly, posting memes of Harry updating his LinkedIn profile and Meghan filing for Duchess refund. It was the internet at its cruelest and most creative. But the real twist came from inside the palace itself. According to one senior aide, Charles wasn't the mastermind behind everything. It was Prince William. The aide claimed that William had pushed for the title removal for months, warning that every scandal attached to Harry was dragging the family down. Supposedly, he told his father, "You can't modernize the monarchy while it's being mocked." If true, that meant the decision wasn't just about royal image. It was about the future throne. William wasn't waiting for his father's reign to end, he was shaping it already. The king might have signed the order, but the next king had written it. And yet, amid all this chaos, Charles appeared strangely somber. sources close to the king said he wasn't celebrating victory. He was grieving. One royal insider claimed he was seen staring at a framed photo of his son's late one night, whispering, "It didn't have to end this way." Those who know him best say he still loves Harry deeply, but he finally accepted that love couldn't fix disloyalty. Meanwhile, Harry and Meghan's Montecito mansion reportedly turned into a war room. Advisors came and went. Legal teams drafted letters, and publicists argued over statements. But no matter what they planned, nothing could undo the symbolism of that royal website update. Their names, once proudly listed under their Royal Highnesses the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, were now simply Harry and Meghan. And if losing the titles was bad, the next blow was worse. Royal correspondents discovered that the couple's charitable foundation had been quietly stripped of royal patronages. That meant no more official representation, no royal funding, and no direct access to royal charities. Their empire, once built on royal prestige, was now entirely self-funded. In short, cut off. Then, just when the chaos seemed to settle, King Charles made a surprise move that shook the palace once more. He announced a new royal tour to the United States, the first in over a decade. The destination? California. The timing? Too perfect to be coincidence. Officially, the visit was to strengthen UK-US environmental ties, but everyone knew it was personal. The palace PR team played it smart. Charles would meet political figures, philanthropists, and environmental leaders, but nowhere on that list were the names Harry or Meghan. For the first time ever, the king would visit their country and pretend they didn't exist. Royal analysts called it a silent message delivered on a global stage. One commentator said, "It's the monarch's way of showing he doesn't need to exile anyone. He just outshines them." The image of Charles arriving in California, waving to cheering crowds while the Sussexes hid behind mansion gates, became an instant meme and the ultimate humiliation, and through it all, the monarchy stood taller. Polls showed a sudden surge in approval ratings for Charles and William. The public saw them as firm, decisive, even heroic. For the first time in years, the royal brand wasn't about scandal, it was about sovereignty. By contrast, the Sussexes' silence started to look less strategic and more defeated. Insiders said they were exhausted emotionally, financially, and reputationally. They thought they could control the story. One source said, "But the crown always controls the ending, and maybe that's the cruel irony of it all." In trying to free themselves from the monarchy, Harry and Meghan ended up trapped by it forever. Every move they make, every deal they sign, every public appearance they attempt, it all circles back to the royal family they tried to escape. Because when you're born into the crown, there's no true exit, only exile. And as King Charles looked out from Buckingham Palace that evening, watching the sunset over the same balcony his mother once stood on, one thing was clear: the monarchy had survived another storm. The Duke and Duchess were gone, and the king remained, because in the royal world, titles may fall, reputations may crumble, but one truth never changes: the crown always wins. So, what do you think, Lumi Legacy family? Did King Charles finally take back control of the monarchy, or did he just make the biggest royal mistake in decades? Was this about duty, revenge, or pure royal ego? Drop your thoughts below, because this story isn't ending anytime soon. Not with Meghan rumored to be plotting her next big move and Harry quietly planning a comeback of his own. If you love the drama, the secrets, and the scandals behind the crown, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and stay tuned right here on Lumi Legacy, where the tea is always royal.